Hi, it's me, Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and join me at Patreon. Link in the description. I was not 100% steady on my feet after all the drinks, and the boots I was wearing had pencil-thin heels, so I felt very vulnerable. Cindy started to dance. "Come on, girl, shake those hips," she shouted above the din. I started to copy what she was doing and hoped that it wasn't too pathetic. She started to point at me as she sang the lyrics. "The girls need a break tonight, we're gonna take the chance to get out on the town. We don't need romance, we only wanna dance. We're gonna let our hair hang down." My skirt swirled as I did my best to imitate the moves by some of the girls nearby. The song reached its chorus and Cindy grabbed my hands and we danced together as she sang. "Oh, oh, oh, go totally crazy, forget I'm a lady. Men's shirts, short skirts. Oh, oh, oh. Really go wild, yeah. Doing it in style." Such was her enthusiasm, I found myself joining in with her, and we sang at the top of our voices. "Oh, oh, oh, I wanna be free, yeah, to feel the way I feel. Man, I feel like a woman." Some young men were dancing nearby and Cindy pulled me along as she made a beeline for the group. Now we were dancing in a group, I was more nervous than ever. One of the men was giving me a good look over, and I reflected on the effect that seeing a woman in a short skirt and high heels can have on any man. Here I was dancing the night away, dressed to the nines, and out on the town with the girls. By the time the music had changed, Cindy and I were dancing bum to bum and generally having what the girls called a good time. The combination of wine and music made me forget all about the decision I was going to have to make tomorrow. Sunday. It was just after 10 o'clock in the morning when I awoke in the bedroom of Miss Roberts' house. Sitting up, I looked down at the pink baby doll night set I had worn on my previous stopover. The top was a delicate garment, all satin and chiffon with a fluffy feather trim across the bust and delicate pink ribbon straps that ended with a bow. A satin thong completed the ensemble, and the soft feel the whole thing gave against my bare skin was something I had not expected. I pulled back the quilt and sat up on the edge of the bed. Although my facial makeup had been cleaned off before retiring to bed, my highly polished fingernails reminded me that last night had been real. My mind was confused as I recalled the previous evening. What had I been thinking of allowing this episode to get so out of hand? Sure, it had all come about because of my desire to wear women's clothes, but it had been my intention for that to be a private thing and not one to be shared with actual women. The house was silent. The others must still be asleep, I thought. We had all come back after the disco because they wanted me to let them know what I was going to do. Looking about the room, I could see the clothes I had worn last night had been put on hangers and hung on the wardrobe door. The dressing table had all the usual feminine items such as makeup, perfume bottles, hairbrushes, and a host of other items. Walking over to the dressing table, I sat down and looked at myself in the mirror. I noticed a short handwritten note folded neatly on the dresser. I could not be sure if it had been there the night before, but instinct told me it was intended for me. I opened the sheet of paper and read, "Sally, we all hope you have slept well and that you enjoyed your day yesterday. By the time you wake, we will have left the house as we have some business we need to attend to, and we feel it is better that you are given time alone to make your final choice. Until we return at midday, you have the run of the house, and all we ask is that you select a suitable outfit and appropriate makeup for when you present yourself to us. There is plenty of food in the kitchen, so feel free to make yourself breakfast. Remember, we will take only your first answer to the question, are you willing to become Sally and submit to womanhood on a full-time basis? Please think very carefully about what this will mean not only to you. It will also affect us. We know what we want you to say, but it have to be your choice alone. If we return and you are not at home or are not dressed accordingly, we will take the answer as a no." It was signed collectively as the girls. There was a lot to be done, I mused. I replaced the letter on the dresser and looked over at the wardrobe. Was it possible that my male clothes were still inside? After all, if I did decide to walk away, then I could hardly make my exit dressed, as I had been the night before. When I opened the wardrobe, I was presented with a rail crammed with women's clothes. Shoes and boots were placed along the bottom of the wardrobe, and it was here that I spotted the black bin bag. My heart raced as I lifted the bag out of the wardrobe and put it on the bed to open it. I could see my trousers inside and also my other clothes. What I didn't recognize was the sealed envelope with Sally written on it. The envelope stared at me. My first thought was to ignore it, get changed, and head off home. But it had obviously been intended for me, and I picked it up. There was quite a bit of weight to the letter, and I could feel several sheets of paper inside. I tore the envelope open, and out fell the Polaroid snaps. At least half a dozen shots, all of me and all taken at the disco. I looked at the pictures of myself dressed in a micro miniskirt, one shoulder top, and those boots. Another had me fixing my lipstick in the ladies' room. I could thank Cindy for that one. It would have been obvious to anyone seeing these snapshots that I was having a great time, because in each shot I had a huge smile across my face, even the ones that showed me dancing with some men. Even the least damning of the photos, a group shot of the four of us laughing and drinking glasses of wine, would be enough to ruin me. And who had taken that? But I was safe. They didn't know where I lived, so what could they do with the pictures anyway? And I was so heavily made up that I could argue that it wasn't me in the snaps anyway. I tossed the pictures on the bed and retrieved my jacket from the bag. It was then I saw the letter from the local council that I had taken with me on the Friday morning with the intention of calling into the housing office en route to this house. That letter would seal my fate. The girls would have taken a note of my home address, and they wanted me to know that running out on them was not the best option if I wanted my secret to remain from my landlord. Resigned to this, I put my clothes back in the bag, put the envelope and photos back as best I could, and returned the bag to the wardrobe. Now what to wear? I ran my fingers along the rail and stopped at a pale pink halter neck top. A size 16, so guessed that it would fit. Next I decided on a simple black pencil skirt, which I held up beside the top to check that it looked okay, something I had seen women do when they were shopping. I put the items on the bed, then went back for some shoes. Every pair came with a heel. Not a single flat pair to be seen. I lifted a pink pair of court shoes, but rejected them as the heel looked too high. I rummaged about until settling on a pair of black strappy sandals with an open toe. Although they had a high heel, they were open at the back and should be more comfortable. Then it hit me. Every single item of clothing and all the pairs of shoes were in my size. Yet this was Miss Roberts' stuff. Just how long had this setup been planned? Halter neck tops have their own problems when it came to selecting underwear. I had picked out a bra from the lingerie drawer, but the shoulder straps would be visible and that would not look right. I looked through the drawer again and found a black Wonder bra. From my reading of clothing catalogs and women's magazines, I remembered that you could adjust the straps of this brand of bra to make it a halter style. I fumbled with the removable straps and tried several times to relink them before I managed to get the setting right. A pair of white high-leg briefs and 10 denier tan tights completed my search through the drawer. I sat back on the bed and looked at the clock. It was now 10:30 and time for a shower. When I returned to the bedroom, I quickly towel-dried my hair and sat down at the dresser to ensure I had shaved as close as I could using a women's razor. Satisfied, I looked on the dresser and found a moisturizer with which to prepare my face. As I gently massaged the cream into my face, I was looking at the range of cosmetics available. There was plenty of choice, but where did I start? I decided I would try and outsmart the girls at their own game. I would coordinate, or try at least, my makeup with my outfit. And I was determined it was going to be girly. I selected the makeup I was going to use and laid out the pots of eyeshadow, eyeliner pens, mascara, blushers, powders, and lipstick before me. My black nail polish would have to come off and replaced with a shimmering pink shade. I decided to do my toes the same shade of polish. In my mind, I knew the sequence to be used for creating the look. Now would come the difficult bit, a full makeover, and for the first time unaided. I picked up the foundation and squeezed out the required amount on my fingertips. I had read that this was better than using the cosmetic sponges as you didn't lose half the product to the sponge, and began to blend the color onto my face. 1 whole hour later, and I was putting the finishing touches to my cheeks with a very light dusting of blusher. The face that looked back at me from the mirror smiled. I was especially pleased with the rosy pink high shine lipstick, which had a fruity flavor that I never expected makeup to have. In short, my lips were in love. I chose one of the perfume bottles and sprayed myself with the scent, then sat back for a second to decide on my next move. My hair was short, but I gathered I could create something similar to last night. With the aid of hairspray and some pins, I got to work. By the time I had styled my hair, it was almost 11:45. 15 minutes to go and still so much to do. It was then I noticed a pink floral choker among the costume jewelry. It would set off my outfit, so I quickly put it on, then got up and started to dress myself in the clothes. At a minute past midday, I was standing in the lounge when I heard the car draw up in the front drive to announce the return of the women. The front door opened, and they came into the room to find me fully dressed in what I had hoped would be the appropriate style. They were laden with shopping bags from a variety of stores, and the look on their faces was one of approval. Miss Roberts removed her denim jacket, put down the shopping, and came towards me to inspect every last detail. "Not bad, Sally. The choker is a particularly nice touch," she nodded as she looked me closely. "Your makeup still needs practice, but it's passable for now. Very girly. I must say you do look good in pastel shades." Cindy and Laura looked really surprised to see me in this way. Had they expected me to run out on them? But how could I have knowing what I knew about the pictures? Laura came up to me. "You're a living doll in that top, Sally. I just want to give you a big hug right now." As her arms wrapped around me, she gave me a girly cheek-to-cheek kiss and whispered in my ear, "I'm glad you found the photo, Sally." She stepped back and smiled. I knew now that Laura must have put the envelope in the bag in an attempt to warn me of what the consequences might have been if I'd run out. Cindy looked very pleased to see me like this. She put her shopping down and went towards the kitchen. "I'll make us all a nice cuppa," she beamed. Miss Roberts turned to her. "Wait, Cindy. We must hear what Sally has to say first. No point in making tea if we're not all going to be here to drink it." Cindy stopped and looked at her, then back at me. "Oh, Sally, please say yes." Miss Roberts sat down on the couch and motioned for the other two women to join her. I was left standing in front of them and found myself clasping my hands in front of me. "Well, Sally, you got our letter and you know what I'm going to ask you. Are you ready to answer?" asked Miss Roberts. A nod. "Are you willing to become Sally and submit to womanhood on a full-time basis?" All three women waited. Suddenly my throat became dry and I thought I might have lost my voice. It seemed like an entirety, but was in fact less than a minute. Yes! For a moment there was silence in the room. I stood like a scolded schoolgirl waiting for someone to speak. Miss Roberts stood up, straightened her skirt with her hands, then spoke. "Cindy, you can go and make the tea now. I think we could all use a cup." "Okay," continued Miss Roberts, "from now on you will be Sally. There is no turning back," she reminded me. "Later this morning I will drive you over to your accommodation where you will settle the balance of your rent and collect all your belongings." "How much notice are you required to give?" "For weeks," I replied. "And how much is that exactly?" asked Miss Roberts. "It would be £600 to settle," came my reply. Miss Roberts nodded as she thought to herself for a moment. "Fine, I will settle the account and you can look upon it as an advance of pay." "Shall I go and change then?" I inquired. "Change?" she queried. "If we're going over to my flat." She looked at me and I was not sure if she understood what I meant. But it was me that did not understand what she meant. "Sure, if you want to put on a more conservative top, I understand," she replied. I got up and straightened the hem of my skirt. I was thinking more like my own clothes. "Darling, these are your clothes." Miss Roberts smiled and came over to adjust the choker round my neck so that the rose flower was in the center of my throat and thus covering up my Adam's apple. "Remember what you just agreed to?" But I tried to reason, but it was always going to be useless. Miss Roberts was not in a negotiating mood. "No buts. I'm sure you've seen the photos we took last night." "Yes, we would have sent them to your landlord if we had come back and found you had flown the coop." Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access.